Welcome to Bringing Jesus Back into Focus 8. I'm going to talk about a very important topic. Do not mix the new wine with the old wine. This is one of the most important instructions that Jesus gave, and yet almost nobody's following this in the modern Christian church since Constantine, Emperor Constantine, 312 AD, when he took Jesus to war and the God of Jesus to war, the divine loving creator, and he adopted basically the Jewish religion again, and that became the new Christian Jewish religion, two religions in one. So I want to talk about this, and I'll also, there's a couple of reasons. Often ask people when I'm walking out by rivers and things, and met them people on walk pathways and things. I mention, creation, and do you think there's some sort of creative life or some God behind it? I'm always fishing for people who might have some sort of faith. It's very interesting. I've met particularly one woman really stood out in my mind. She was in her probably mid-30s. And she said, I don't want anything to do with religion. I said, but were you in like a Christian faith or religion? She said, I was. And her words were really stunning. She said, the Christian church I was with really screwed up my mind. I want nothing to do with religion ever again, and not the Christian religion. And I met other women, same story, some for different reasons. Some believe in the scientific belief that everything's material gas and the Big Bang Theory, and they don't believe in spirit anymore because of the materialist cult, who are just teaching material things and not looking at spiritual things. So they leave because of that reason. But predominantly it's because of this big problem with the confusion that is being caused by the Old Testament, the old wine and the new wine. I met a really lovely man, a Christian man, older than myself, obviously very conservative man, clearly a good man, a man of good nature. You could just tell it was just shining out from him that he had led a good life. And we chatted, and I opened up the door about faith, and it turns out his whole life he'd been a Catholic. And I was born into the Catholic faith, but by the time I was 17 I was non-denominational. And this man's name was Tom, and I asked him one day, I said, Tom, why do you think the churches are emptying? There are no young people anymore, and all grey-haired people here in Melbourne, Australia. And he was silent, and he just looked at me, and he said 3 words: the Old Testament. And I said, you're absolutely correct, Tom. I said, I don't know many people who realise that. And he said, no, that's why. And he really confirmed my own belief, which I've always had, that I'm not Jewish. I don't study the Jewish religion. I don't need to look at the Old Testament at all. And I don't read Revelations. So I've met these children who are leaving the church in droves because of the confusion that the churches, all the Judeo-Christian churches, there's the problem. Jewish Christian churches. You can't teach two religions and say they're the same religion. So I'll explain what's gone wrong, and I'll show you what to do with the Bible so that you can free yourself up from this confusion. I want to see children come back to Jesus Christ and the God of Jesus Christ, which is a divine loving God. It's pure divine love. Jesus was at one with divine love. So for the sake of the woman I met whose mind had been completely screwed up by the Judeo-Christian church she was with, and many others who don't want to bow the Judeo-Christian churches because they're teaching two religions, and the Jewish religion and the gods of the Jewish religion, in the Old Testament there are 2 gods, there's only one God in the Jesus religion. So this is what I'd like to dedicate it to, particularly to that woman who was whose religious belief in Jesus, she threw him out with the bathwater through the confusion that churches are teaching that we should follow the Jewish religion. Now, the first thing is I guess I just better make sure you understand I'm just doing what Jesus said to do. Jesus warned all followers when he said, and no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins and the wine is lost, and so are the skins. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and so both are preserved. So the Jewish religion, if you want to study that, look at the Old Testament. But do not put it in the same wineskin as the New Testament. Have a look at this. There's a wineskin, leather wineskin. Now guess what? There are 2 wines in here. It's called the Bible. And have a look at this. That thick part is the Jewish religion. That is the Jewish religion. That whole thick part's the Jewish religion. And that little thin part is my religion, the Christian religion. I don't read the book of Revelations. That should be in the Old Testament. That belongs in the book of Daniel. It should not be in the New Testament. And it was not written by the same writer of the Gospel of John. All theologians agree on that. So people are studying this huge book of the Jewish religion in the Christian churches. If you want to study the Jewish religion, go to a synagogue. Or if you want to read about the Jewish religion, put it on the shelf and bring it down every now and then, and you'll understand where Jesus got a lot of his sayings from. But Jesus is beyond the Old Testament. He's the New Testament. So you shouldn't mix those two books together. That book has to be cut apart. And I'll do that before the end of this video. And Jesus also warned, no one tears a piece from a new garment and puts it on an old garment. If he does, he will tear the new, that's Jesus' teachings and understanding of God, and the piece from the new will not match the old. I repeat, it will not match the old. Or the patch tears away from it and the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. The new God that Jesus understood, the divine loving God, singular love, no vengeance, no violence, no throwing you into hell, none of that distortion that's in the Old Testament of the two gods that the Jews were worshipping, and they were worshipping two gods, not one. And so Jesus says, do not try to mix this singular divine loving God with a dualistic God. That's what he's saying there. And they're his words, and I agree with them totally. I've never, ever felt I was Jewish, ever. I've never bothered about the Old Testament or the book of Revelations. I just love his words. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Some of the letters are very nice from the apostles, etc. And Paul's letters about love. So I'll go through this. This is really for the children who are confused and leaving the church. Don't leave Jesus. Leave the Jewish Christian churches, absolutely, or just ignore the parts about the Jewish religion that they're teaching. Just ignore it. I do. Lots of people do. Some of the greatest saints are in Judeo-Christian churches. I'm not saying they're evil or anything like that. I'm just saying there's no need to study the Jewish religion in a Christian church. You only need to study Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the life of Jesus, and the God of Jesus, that is divine love. And that's what should be happening. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. I can't find a Christian church. They're all Jewish Christian churches. So that's why I'm non-denominational and have been for the last 50 years. I'm just a follower of Jesus. So I want to get this out. Unfortunately, my body's very ill, and I could easily die. So some Jewish Christians might be glad I'm dying. No, I shouldn't say that. But they may be after I finish this dialogue and show you what to do with the Bible. With great respect, I'll be cutting up a Bible. So hang around. And it's just to help, particularly that woman whose mind was screwed up by a Jewish Christian church. So I belong to the followers of Jesus' way of divine love. Do not mix the new wine with the old wine is the topic, as Jesus himself said. There's my email, jcinfocus@gmail.com. If you want to email me, I'll be happy to talk about this with anyone, particularly anyone who's just a follower of Jesus and doesn't follow the Jewish religion. That is, the dualistic gods in the Jewish religion. Right, the teachings of Jesus that reveal the divine loving creator that Jesus was at one with should never be mixed into the dualistic God of the Jewish religion in the Old Testament. These two books of different religions should not be placed in the one wineskin of the Christian Bible. They should be kept in separate books. One book for the Old Testament religion of the Jewish people and their dualistic gods, a God of love and a God of war and vengeance, and another book with the New Testament religion of Jesus, without the book of Revelations, that belongs in the Old Testament, with the one true divine loving creator whom Jesus was at one with and revealed to us all. All Judeo-Christian denominations who still call themselves Judeo-Christian must drop the word Judeo from any title attributed to them. You cannot teach two different religions with two different gods, two children, and say they are the same. This has to stop. It slanders Jesus and the divine loving creator Jesus brings us to, and confuses children, driving them away from the true Christian religion and the way of Jesus and the divine loving creator. Jesus warned all followers when he said, and no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins. The wine is lost, and so are the skins. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, so both are preserved. And Jesus also warned, no one tears a piece from a new garment, puts it on an old garment. If he does, he will tear the new, and the piece from the new will not match the old, or the patch tears away from it, and from the new, from the old, and a worse tear is made. You mustn't mix these two together in the one book. You mustn't do that anymore. Jesus warns all of his followers to never try and match the one true divine loving creator he reveals to us in the new wine or New Testament and understanding of God with the old wine and Old Testament dualistic gods of the Jewish religion. The Jewish people can follow that religion. That's very respectful. There are things in the Jewish religion that are beautiful, of love. There are other things in there that are not. They belong to a different God. They were worshipping two gods, not one. They were not worshipping one God at all, but two opposite gods that they overlaid by calling them by the same name, Yahweh. One Yahweh God that represented the beast of the flesh, the God of war and vengeance, so they could legitimize invading others' lands, stealing them through war and killing and stealing their treasures as well, and the Yahweh God of love that a few of the good prophets tried to lead them to. Jesus was at one with this divine God of love, as no other before him in the Jewish religion was. He moved out of the dualistic distortion religion of the Jewish people and became at one with divine, spiritual, loving Creator. And he wants us all to do the same. There's only one true God, and that's a divine, loving God. The Old Testament dualistic gods cannot match the one divine, loving God of Jesus and never will. The Jewish religion was following a distorted understanding of the divine, spiritual Creator. Jesus was not. If you try to tear the teachings of Jesus out of the New Testament, along with the one true divine loving Creator, and sew them onto the old distorted teachings and dualistic gods of the Jewish people, they will never join and will always be at odds with each other, causing confusion and an even greater convoluted distortion of the truth about the divine loving Creator, making it almost impossible to free yourself from the bonds of entanglement caused by joining the distortion of the dualistic God of the Old Testament Jewish religion to the one true divine loving Creator of Jesus, who gives us spiritual life through the divine loving life force, the divine one placed in our souls and spirit. If you pour the new fresh wine of Jesus' teachings about the one true divine loving Creator and the true spiritual way to heaven into the Old Testament wine teachings, they will be tainted or poisoned by the old understanding of God and some of the distorted teachings found there. Then you will never understand what the new wine of Jesus really tastes like in relation to the old distorted wine. And you will never understand your own spiritual true identity as a child of the divine loving Creator, because you are worshipping a distortion or fractured God by becoming a follower of the dualistic God again. The two religions must be kept separate from one another, and I say that quite respectfully. I'm not Jewish, I have no interest in studying it, and Jewish children have no interest in studying the religion of Christ. That's fine. Don't join them together, Christian churches. The book of Revelations must also be cut out of the New Testament, as it belongs with the distorted dualistic God of the Old Testament, with the book of Daniel. It should never have been allowed to anything associated with Jesus or the divine loving Creator. It slanders both Jesus and the divine loving Creator. All theologians agree it was not written by the same person who wrote the Gospel of John. It is a red herring, misleading, confusing, and it will cleverly and cunningly take you away from the transformational teachings of divine love of Jesus that lead you to the one true divine loving God that can change your life and save your soul in spirit. It is a dangerous book and should never be associated with Jesus and the God of Jesus, and I really mean that. It's everything in the New Testament. It's almost as if someone's cunningly, put a detour sign at the end of the New Testament to take you back to the old dualistic God, isn't it? It's a detour, that one. That's to take you away from heaven, that book. That's for sure. Personally, I'm cutting my Bibles into two separate books or wineskins. The Old Testament Jewish religion can lead to a serious misunderstanding about the true divine Creator of Jesus. The Old Testament is not at all necessary to become a follower of Jesus, and I do not recommend any Christian to read it much, or the book of Revelations. Only after years of studying the teachings of Jesus and getting to personally feel that you really know him and setting yourself on the correct spiritual way to follow Jesus and having a growing experience of the true one divine loving spiritual Creator who gave you true spiritual life, would you bother to look at the old Jewish religion with its distorted dualistic gods? There are definitely some divine loving teachings amongst the distortions of the Old Testament, but only a true follower of Jesus will see the distortions and disregard them. Most will not be aware and be led into the distortions, taking Jesus and the divine loving Creator of Jesus with them into the maze that Jesus tried to take them out of. Cut yourself free from the Old Testament distortions that may be binding and confusing your soul in spirit. by being taught to follow two different religions with two different gods and trying to make them the same. Trying to make white black and black white. At best you will end up neither, but just a shade of spiritual grey. If you are a follower of Jesus of Nazareth, a Christian, just study the New Testament without the book of Revelations. It was Emperor Constantine of Rome in 312 AD who dragged Jesus and the divine loving creator back into the Old Testament dualistic God of the Jewish religion by going to war in the name of Jesus and the divine loving creator. And most Christians have been stuck there ever since. Come out of this distortion. Stop going to war to start with. We all need to revive the true spiritual Christian religion that Jesus originally founded in this earth world and become transformed by it into true spiritual children of the divine loving creator before we all destroy each other and the earth. We are pacifist followers of Jesus. Wake up, arise and move into your God-given soul, mind and spirit of divine love and come out of the trap and prison of the dualistic mind, often propped up by delusional, false, dualistic God belief. May the divine love of the one divine loving creator and Jesus be with us always and guide us to become true spiritual children of the divine loving creator. So if I was going to start a church, that would be the symbol, the earth and the spirit. Jesus rose from the earth into the spirit and we have to do the same. It's an internal resurrection. The holy war happens right here. And I have to become at one with divine love, otherwise the battle's lost. How I affect the world? Well, if I'm a person of peace and love, well, I affect the world. I'm not joining in the army. I'll never pick up a gun. I'll follow Jesus to the end. Now, this is what I suggest that we do with the Bible. Now, this is, as I say, I do this with great respect. Now, what we need to do here is, first of all, we have to be very respectful of the Jewish religion. There's absolutely no... I'm respectful of the Bhagavad Gita, Buddha's teachings, the Quran. There are many things that have messages of love in them. Anything that's talking about love, well, you can trust that. Anything that's talking about violence, revenge, killing, don't trust that. So that's why we have to separate the old wine now from the new wine. Now, to prepare for this, you want some good dust covers because we want to respect the Old Testament Jewish religion. We don't want to trash it or anything like that. Now this is a Bible. Now the Bible, I've got plenty of Bibles, but I just want to demonstrate it with this one. Now again, we've got the very large. Let's see now where does it start? We've got the Jewish religion. Now the Jewish religion, which I don't need to study because I'm a Christian. I can look at it because a lot of Jesus' remarks come from the Old Testament. Some of them, of course, are put in by the author. Jesus never said them anyway. But here we go, the New Testament. So again, as we can see here, you've got the very large part is this part. This is the Jewish religion. So this is the old wineskin here. So what we need to do, as I say, with great respect, I'm not going to throw this in the bin or anything like that. I'll put this on the shelf. And if I want to study the Jewish religion, where Jesus came from, and find where some of his sayings came from, I can do that. I'm not throwing this away or anything like that. It's just that it's very difficult to find books in stores that are not singular in the wine. They have the two wines in the one wineskin. So all you have to do is just get a pair of scissors and just cut up here if we can. Because I haven't tried this, and it might be a bit difficult. Okay, well it's proving a little bit difficult. But the idea is we try to cut this over here. No, can't easily do it. There we go. Now again, as I say, this has nothing to do with disrespect to the Bible. This is just separating what Jesus said to do. There we are. Now I've got two separate wineskins. They're both very. This is the one that I follow. It's a little wineskin amount, and this is the Jewish one. Now they're separate. Now the other thing we have to do with this book in particular this particular copy, we also have to remove the book of Revelations from the New Testament, because that belongs in the Old Testament. So we come here. Here we are, the book of Revelations. This is a dualistic God. Now the problem with this book is the book of Jude, the Epistle of Jude, is on the back side of the first page of Revelation. So what I've done is I've photocopied the page of Jude so I can put it back in, because I have to cut out this book of Revelation. It doesn't belong in the New Testament. It belongs in the book of Daniel. If you want to read it, just put it there and you can read it any time you want. I'm not saying throw it in the rubbish bin. I'm just saying don't put this with the books of Jesus. Don't put this with the Jewish, put this with the Jewish religion, not with the Christian religion. There we go, we just cut that out there. Again, with great respect, I'm not putting this in the rubbish bin. I'm just removing this from the new wine, because this is a piece of the old wine. So we've got that there, and then with just a little stapler, we can just staple those pages together. Oh, well, staples are out. Well, we can use some sticky tape, that's fine. So just with some sticky tape, just bind those pages together. So, as I say, with great respect, if you wish to study this book of Revelations, which is about the dualistic God of the Jewish religion, which someone's dumped Jesus in the middle of, then go ahead. And we won't throw that in the rubbish bin. We'll keep that book of Revelations here. Where is it now? The book of Revelations. There we are, the Revelations. So that belongs in the Old Testament, so we've cut that out of there. But before we do, we replaced the book of Jude, which I had to, in this book, I had to photocopy so I don't lose part of the new wine. That's a page of the new wine. I'll put that back in there, like that. And that's there. So there I've got the new wine book. And then we just take this Revelations and we find the book of Daniel. The book of Revelations is essentially the book of Daniel. Someone's rewritten it. There we go, the book of Daniel. So we'll put that in there. There we go. So now with great respect, there's the Jewish religion with the dualistic God in it. I'm not throwing that in the rubbish bin, because I sometimes look up various things Jesus said to find out where they came from. So with great respect, I now place this in a dust cover so it doesn't get dirty or anything like that. This is the Jewish religion. And I have no disrespect for it, it's just that I don't follow it. I'm a Christian. So that goes in there, like that. And that's completely safe, and it's completely clean and tidy and respectfully. Now, this is the old wine. This is the new wine. So I've got the old wine here and the new wine here. See, then they're in separate wine skins. I'm not going to try to stick that in there, because to do that would be going against what my teacher said to do. He said, keep the divine loving God, there it is there, the divine loving God of the New Testament, keep that away from this one. Don't mix it. Otherwise, he said, you'll spoil this one. You'll lose it. You won't understand the true God. So I've done that. So that's the respectful Old Testament, which I'll now put on the shelf. If I ever need to read that, that's there for me to read anytime I wish. So that's all good. Yeah. So, and then the New Testament, of course, again, with respect, I place that in another dust cover as well. And then, of course, that's the main book I study anyway. It's the only book I study for the Christian religion, because that's where Christ is. That's the Christian religion book. So I put that there, and we put that there. And so now I've got a separate wine skin. There we go. So now I've got a separate wine skin for my religion, which is called the Christian religion, This has Christ in it. Without the book of Revelations, we've removed that and put it in the old wineskin. That's where it belongs. And so that's the way to do it. Now that, if you do that and just study Jesus' words, if you ever want to refer back to the Jewish religion with the dualistic God of war and love, you can do that if you want to. It's quite interesting. There are some nice points about love in there, but there's also some massive destructive distortions, which Christians don't really need. So that's my Christian Bible there. That's how big it is. Compared to the Jewish religion, you can see the difference. Now, I've been to denominations where they study the Jewish religion 90% of the year, and then they study Jesus' religion the rest of the 10%. I've been to denominations where they don't even mention Jesus in the entire meeting. They just mention the old Jewish religion or Revelations. They jump over Jesus from here to there. It's stunning. I just can't believe it. But there you go. So for the sake of that woman who said the Judeo-Christian church who really screwed up my mind, for her sake and every other Christian's sake and every other follower of Jesus' sake, I've shown you what to do. As I say, with great respect. They are two different religions in the one wineskin, and Jesus said, do not do that. Keep them separate and preserve them both. The Jewish religion is preserved by the Jewish people. If you want to follow the Jewish religion, go to a synagogue. If you want to study the Jewish religion, well, you don't have to leave the Christian churches. Jesus obviously was a Jew. He came out of the Jewish religion, but that's the point. He came out of it. He didn't stay in it. If he stayed in it, you would never have heard of him. He developed a new understanding of God. He came to a new understanding, and he was divine. He could heal children. I mean, he was at one with love. The reason he could heal children, because he couldn't hurt anybody, because the God of Jesus can't hurt anybody, including you, and never will. The divine loving God of Jesus doesn't make hell, throw you into hell. That's all to do with the Jewish beliefs. But the big problem with God is the Judeo-Christian churches for 1700 years have been teaching the God of Jesus is the same God of the Old Testament, and it's not. That's just the fact. You only have to read what the God of the Old Testament did at times to see that's not the loving God of Jesus. That is a beast of the flesh war God. They could have been a bit more honest, I think, and said, like the Romans had Mars, the god of war, Mars. Greeks, Assyrians, Egyptians, they all had war gods. But the Jewish people made a big problem for themselves by saying our war god, when we're told, oh yes, we go to war, I'll protect you, you'll win, says God, the loving God, Yahweh. They go and murder and kill, and then they say, oh, Yahweh also tells us we should love one another and maybe even make friends with our enemies. Well, you can't have it both ways. Make war with your enemies, make friends with your enemies. Which is it? Which God? In Christianity, we only have one God. God's love is like the sun that rises on the good and on the evil. God's love is like the rain that falls on the just and the unjust. If you wish to be children of this God in heaven, divine love, your love must be as perfect as this love. I'm a follower of Jesus of Nazareth. I believe in divine love and only one God of divine love who can never hurt anybody and never has and never will. I do believe in the divine law of reaping what we sow. I do believe in that. So be careful, all of us have to be careful what we do. There are consequences after death. But while I'm here, I'll defend Jesus and I'll defend the God of Jesus. That's what I've done. Hope you enjoyed it. By all means, contact me at my email address, which is just, where are we? There we are. And I pray that this helps children who are confused and leaving the church. You don't have to leave a church, just forget about a lot of the dialogue about the God of the Old Testament is the same as Jesus. It's not. I'm telling you, it's not. There are two gods in the Old Testament and only one God in the New Testament. And even then the New Testament has to be read carefully because there are certain misunderstood words, for example, thrown into eternal damnation or eternal fire. The word eternal in Greek means really, that word really should mean an indeterminate amount of time. Not eternal. So not eternal punishment, but an indeterminate amount of time. That's the way Jesus was talking, because that fits in with reaping what you sow. You know, that's the way divine law of karma, or reaping what you sow, works. It's dependent on your own life as to what you reap. It's not eternal. It depends on what you yourself have done or not done. There we go. I do hope and pray that this children who are leaving churches in droves, who don't want to come to them because of this confusion, go back to your church or stay with your church, but just remember to study Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. And that's where you'll find the true God, and that's where you'll find your true soul and your true identity as pure love. You have a soul mind of pure love. That comes from the divine loving creator and no one else. And the God of the Old Testament, there are two gods. In the New Testament, there's one God. Please understand that. It'll help you if you're in trouble at the moment and thinking about leaving the faith. Don't leave the faith. Don't leave Jesus. Just leave the Old Testament behind. Practice Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Sermon on the Mount, of course, one of the most beautiful spiritual teachings in the world. And you'll begin to understand that God's only love. And then you'll be able to see the distortions in the Old Testament. So that's all from Christopher John Joseph today. I hope this helps someone, because I'm sick of people slandering Jesus and the God of Jesus. May you all make it to heaven. May we all make it to heaven by following the way of Jesus and only divine love.